We're
Okay,
recording.
so
Okay.
thank you, Joanne. On number 4 on the agenda, the current insurance and legislative environment and
Wait,
plans for renewal.
We're accepting the minutes?
Oh,
Minutes are page 2.
Oh, I know that.
Okay.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
I so move.
Are there any corrections to the minutes that have been presented? Minutes are accepted.
minutes was, thank you very much.
All right, now you can go.
Go. On number 4 on the agenda, current insurance and legislative environment and plans for renewal. Well, at last month's meeting, I offered the suggestion to stay on course with Assured Partners, as I see many more issues our association boards have to address, specifically with structural integrity and reserve study reports. So after our meeting, David Boas sent me an email that we should consider or reconsider our decision and have another insurance broker or more speak about their agency for our 2025 renewal. David stated that in the UCI bylaws on page 22, letter Q, we as a organization are being scrutinized, and that in order to avoid condemnation or embarrassment, another vendor should be solicited and given an opportunity to give a presentation to the committee. So in view of David's comments, I have arranged to have Keith Carroll of the Rick Carroll Agency, not part of Centria Group, come to our August 20th meeting. I trust that I have done the right thing without consulting with all of you. Do we need to vote on having Keith Carroll give a presentation?
No,
No, I don't think so.
it's up to you as a chair, if that's what you want to do.
That's what you want to do, that's sufficient.
Okay, good. So, yeah, so we'll have him come in and he'll give us a presentation. Then, let me see, next on the agenda would be the Disaster Relief Master Service Agreement. So, yeah, we had a very lively conversation yesterday at the officers' meeting. Mr. Tennyson guided us throughout this whole process because he kept referring to Article 12 of the UCO Model Document Declaration and Chapter 178 of the Condo Act. So he kept bringing us in. You know, this is not a simple decision. There were many factors we had to look at in order for anything of a contract to be acceptable. So I'll tell you a little background. About 3 weeks ago, Mike from our insurance office contacted Phil Massey of Assured Partners about disaster relief contacts. And Phil thought about it, and he worked closely with a lady called Esther Santamaria from Service Master. Some of you may remember that name, Service Master, because I guess we were attempting to have a contract in place a while ago. Nothing really happened out of that. So anyway, today Esther works with Custom Disaster Restoration. It took a good 3 weeks with our attorney to get an acceptable contract approved by Mr. Tennyson. So briefly, Custom offered an addendum to their master service agreement. And I would like to read you Mr. Tennyson's descriptions, because this is all legal. And, you know, even I get a little lost in this. I know insurance, I don't know legal stuff. So he explained there are 2 models. We had to choose between A and B. So the first model proposed by Mr. Tennyson. Anybody have a question?
No, just so that you know, we have a copy of the minutes from yesterday's meeting. Everybody's been handed those. I don't know if you got
I
that.
got it. Suzanne, I
Yes.
did that copy by email.
I do have that. Thank you very much. That helped. Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
But when you
Yeah.
finish, we'll talk about some things because it was a little confusing yesterday, so you
Yeah.
go forward and we'll go forward to the people who didn't hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then I'll answer any questions. So
Okay.
the UCO casualty model is where each building association, before any kind of a claim occurs or a loss occurs, would have to enter into a resolution to administer these losses. So the model would require Mr. Tennyson to rewrite the custom proposed contract without making reference to the 309 building associations. In other words, this model would delegate all casualty loss administration to UCO. So we would have to get the money from the insurance company and then hand it out to the building, which is a very involved process. And I don't think we have the manpower for that. So that's the UCO casualty model. The second one was the building association casualty model. So Mr. Tennyson explained that this one, the addendum that custom gave us, is suggesting a emergency response program where each of the 309 associations must administer their own losses, and UCO would have no legal authority to act on their behalf. If a building association could not hold a board meeting to make decisions, nothing would get done. So Mr. Tennyson said that this UCO model would only be a advisory role, and the addendum holds each individual building association legally responsible to handle their own insurance claims. So that's what was discussed yesterday. And of course, to me, all of this is confusing because you really have, those two entities, the Condo Act and the UCO model declaration. This Tennyson is really, I'm really amazed with, well, he's been doing this for many years. So I learned a lot, and we voted on, not me, the officers voted on it. And there was a unanimous vote for 6-0 to pass the association casualty model. So before I go any further on anything, does anybody have any questions what that means?
The associations are individually responsible.
Okay, I just wanted to know
Very,
which one.
very simple, that's it.
Each
Get us out of it.
Right. In the past, when we had Belfour and other companies in here, this was never part of the contract. The contract stated that each association was independently responsible.
Really? So
Yeah.
now it's easier for a large business like Custom to say, oh, we only want to deal with UCO. We don't want to deal with all these 309 because it's more expensive for them to do it, dealing with each individual building, much more
No, but
commotion.
it's not good for you, Go.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. So that's good. So this is really something that may be changed because of the expenses involved in it to the vendor, but that's their issue. So it's all done. So what is the next step then now, Fausto? You have to review it later and then.
It's my understanding that once we get the go-ahead, we'll sign the contract and we'll give it to Customs so that we have it available.
Well,
in
excellent.
case There's a disaster.
Do we want to clarify something?
Well, yes, I'm gonna wait until she's done with her. Yes.
All right, so that how it works is that, let's say my building, Southampton A, has a loss. And we were starting to go over this again because when the issue is, when does the insurance company, American Coastal, actually give the damaged building money? After the hurricane deductible is satisfied.
Right.
So people think that, yeah, I have a $10,000 deductible, no problem. I have that in the reserves. Well, that does not apply to a hurricane. So the insurance company, American Coastal, will provide emergency funding for the damaged building after they know that the building has reserves in the amount of, for Southampton A, $400,000. So
Yeah,
I
well,
want,
that's not true.
See, that's what we.
You got everybody confused with that. Yesterday.
And
I'm
yeah.
listening.
The way it is if the building has X number, let's say a building has $350,000 worth of. Southampton A has $350,000 worth of damage to their building after a named storm. There is no claim, because the responsibility, the first $450,000 has to be paid by the building.
That's correct.
They don't care, but what you said yesterday, that if the insurance company doesn't see that you have the deductible on hand, they're not even gonna talk to you.
Right.
Well,
That's
that's really
correct.
part of the same story, because that's
No,
just an
it's not.
extension of it.
No.
Yes, let
They
me
don't
explain further. Let me explain further. So if a building is insured for 8 million,
Yes,
Like we are.
the carrier knows what their responsibility is over the deductible. Correct so far?
yes.
Okay,
If you have
so
a
let's
negative
say,
deductible,
There's no. claim.
there's no claim.
that's correct, there's no claim, that's correct.
So the company, the insurance company doesn't care if you have $400,000 in the bank to cover the damages to the building.
But, you know,
If it's only
That's not gonna be
350,
the claim.
but that's really understood. I didn't know I had to be so, specific about it. My point in bringing this up is to let people know that the deductible has to be satisfied first before any claim amount will be paid.
Yes,
So,
that's what you should have said yesterday. You didn't say that. And it-
okay,
everybody confused. We had a
maybe
few.
I'm talking
Yes, sir.
insurance jargon, sorry.
No, that's okay.
We still
Yeah.
have tax, we don't
Yeah.
have 440.
Yes, Michael.
Would it be appropriate to ask a
Yeah,
question?
sure.
In the event that one association has multiple buildings that comprise its deductible amount, is that broken down on a per building basis or a total amount? Loss, so if a building, let's say an association has 10 buildings and $1 million deductible. Would that mean that each building would have to satisfy its own 100,000 or cumulatively to make the million?
What does the declaration state? In other words, are all those buildings listed on one declarations page?
Yes,
Oh, then that's it.
Then that would be the answer. And I would verify that with Phil to be sure. And I could do that this afternoon. That's Golf's Edge, right, Michael?
yes, thank you.
So my take on that would be, if they're all listed on one declarations page, that would be one deductible. But it's always good to verify, because insurance companies make up their own rules as we go along. Okay, so getting back to Fausto. So did that clarify the question? I didn't mean
Yes.
for there to be confusion. Sometimes I'm ahead of myself. And
Well,
I
yeah,
say
there
things
was a
that
lot of-
people,
There was a lot of upset people in here because the statement was made, you even got Tennyson upset. Cause he was saying, what do you mean you people don't have $400,000 for your deductible? You
but
know,
I gave the example of a 4-story building, Southampton A.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We're forced to.
We're a 4-story building
We
too.
need 414,000. Good luck
The,
with that.
the issue becomes if your damage on a named storm is less than your deductible, there is no claim.
Right.
That's correct, but what is the deductible? People don't understand that.
They
No,
understand.
no. We understand.
They understand the deductible. Yeah, what a lot of people don't understand that it used to be a $5,000 deductible and now it's a $10,000 deductible for any damage done to the building other than a named storm.
Right.
Most of for years, it was that $5,000 deductible. And a lot of buildings are not aware that they're responsible for the first $10,000.
For perils, other perils.
Right,
know.
but here's the thing. So you're sure, Fausto, that the boards in Century Village understand what the percentage deductible is?
Yes, whether they have that in their funds for a named storm is slim to none,
Right.
okay? I don't think any building in here can get the a named storm deductible in
Reserves.
their reserves.
Yeah, and I learned something from Donald yesterday. Remember, he said, oh, it depends on who does the reserve study. Some firms do include the hurricane deductible in the reserves. And, if you know a little bit about this hurricane stuff, this just really started recently, like 2010. So if you're here a long time in Century Village, this was not part of the insurance policy in the past. This just evolved over time. And it used to be a 1% deductible. Now
Yeah,
we can
it used
have
to
up
be
to a
one,
5%.
2 or 3%, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just the amount of money has gone up and the values, nobody does 1% anymore. It's 3, 4, or 5%.
Correct.
Yeah, it's too expensive. Yeah, it's too expensive.
Right,
So- So did that clarify the issue
Yeah,
from
but-
yesterday?
yeah, that's why, when you guys were talking, remember I said, let's stop, we're talking, let's change the subject?
Yeah,
Cause I didn't wanna bring this up, cause we're paying for an attorney to sit there
that's right.
and
yeah.
listen to us. And, I figured I'd wait until today so that we can clarify it for everybody in the room. Cause everybody was ready to go to the bank and borrow money so they could meet their deductible,
That's correct.
Yeah, but as long as the two-story buildings know their deductible is not 400,000. I just gave an example of
I-
Yeah,
one.
we know
building.
that, we know that.
I
Yeah,
understand that, but while you were saying that, Donald said, I will assess every unit owner in my building $2,000. So I have my 40,000 for my building.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right.
He didn't understand it either. That's
Oh,
only in a named storm.
right, only if-
Wait,
see, this is how it works. The National Weather Service, not Assured Partners, not UCO, not American Coastal, determines the wind velocity. So
Yes.
a category 1 storm is winds and a sustained winds at 1 minute for 74 miles an hour or higher. That's a category 1 storm. That triggers the hurricane deductible.
Right,
That's it.
I understand that.
Oh, okay, very, very good. So that's done. And let's see, what else we have here. So does anybody have any questions again about the master service agreement, how Mr. Tennyson explained the pre-event and the post-event options? The pre-event would be, of course, the building association casualty model. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Let's see.
You weren't interested in- No? Nothing, okay. No, I know, but you can ask questions.
I'll be asking my president or our board what our reserves are, how much.
Nobody was that much trust me. Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, let's see. Does anybody have any questions about how this vendor Custom, it's like a disaster restoration company? Does anybody have any questions how that would work?
Yes, Suzanne, it's not really clear on how the associations
Yeah.
will get a hold of this company to get them into their buildings.
That's what I was asking.
Now, if you look, Custom has an 800 number, but you get stuck on this smorgasbord of press 1 for something, press 2 for,
Right.
and you never get a person, right? So
So we have a direct one too.
if we do negotiate the contract,
Yeah.
perhaps someone has to have a valid phone number where we can be answered if you
Correct.
call.
Well, in the
The
past,
the other point I had here
That's a
is-
good question.
if essentially what they're doing is making a claim. You have a hurricane and they're indicating that they need disaster relief because it's a potential claim. And in the past, Tony was advised about a claim or about an incident report or damage. And I don't know if this is factored in as to whether the association should contact the UCO insurance office as well as Custom.
in the past, but the last agent that we had in here was Belfour. Belfour had a person that was responsible for Century Village.
Okay.
Whoever called, we gave them that information to Belfour, and Belfour went to the association and checked out for the building damage. So if there is a named storm, Custom needs to have a person here, not a telephone.
Makes more
Because
sense.
this building, that's why we have generators, that's why we have lines that will work.
Right.
Someone from Custom has to be here, okay, and we can go to the associations and say, do you want the service or not? And they can sign the contract or whatever, or they can come here, which is what we've done, that's how we trained.
Does that know this? Does Maria?
I don't know, but once we sign the contract, Mr. Massey, who should be told that this is what we expect. No different than he has to have a person here in case of a named storm, somebody from custom has to be here
Right.
to help handle this paperwork.
Now, should that be discussed before you sign the contract?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
I
absolutely.
didn't-
Okay, so I'll handle that today.
I
Yeah.
have a question too, related to this. What happens during, after a named storm? When you're processing all this, with the buildings that do not use Assured Partners? I'm
They're on their own.
assuming-
They have
not-
not-
help them. We're not gonna help anybody if we
No.
don't.
This is
I-
for those
that's-
people that are on this.
It's, the offering is to whoever has the UCO insurance.
Exactly.
Now, if they wanna piggyback off of them, that's up to them. We
Okay.
can't force them to do that.
But are we going to? I guess that's my
It's
question.
available, I
Alright.
mean, if somebody wants it, but they're gonna, I'm sure that in the past, they've always taken care of whoever was part of our insurance program. That was
Okay.
one of the perks. If you have an issue, okay?
Yeah.
We have a contractor
Yeah.
here, he's gonna help you, he'll put tarps, he'll do whatever he needs to do,
Right.
okay?
It's gonna be a little confusing because then you get into the, having the adjuster come and do an assessment and
But-
file a claim.
Actually,
If they
Then
have,
you gotta sort
but
of.
if you have insurance with a different carrier, it's up to the building to
Right.
contact that insurance and say, listen, I need an adjuster here.
No, this
I can see
happened,
this.
it's been that way. A lot of people, not everybody in the village goes with,
No, I know, that's what I'm saying, it can be very confusing in a
Yeah.
time of disaster. When you've got
That's
outliers that have
But
to be.
this has always been the command center. This is where her,
Yeah.
this is where search is, this is where we are.
Yeah.
The last time that we had any damage, we came in here and I was very disappointed in what search did, because they were running around like chickens. And I made a suggestion, of, you have 4 vice presidents, let's go out on the road and let's drive around, and we split up, we did that. So the vice presidents went out and we each took a quadrant, drove around to the buildings, checked to see if there was damage, and came back here and reported it. Okay?
Michael.
Okay, one other point is that the addendum that Esther sent back to be signed had a full list of the associations that are with the Assured program. So if they're not on that list, they're not covered by custom.
So
design.
custom won't take care of
No,
We don't know
They
that.
will.
They have to, they have to spend
it.
their
I'm
own.
just saying.
They're an
I'm
independent
just looking
contractor,
out-
they can work with whoever they want.
I'm looking out for,
Yes,
you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
just to minimize, cause it'll be pandemonium if there's any real loss.
I think Suzanne, I think you need to ask Phil Massey for a clarification, since he has dealings with customs, how that would work.
I know in the past, anybody who wasn't with UCO was on
Their own, right?
So if there was, everyone who knew that who didn't have the companies that we were dealing with, got their own.
I can see some angst there. That's
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not really our responsibility if you don't want to be.
But we're
with-
all UCO.
Right, yeah.
We're UCO. We have three
And
hundred, they all pay our bill.
It doesn't matter, but they don't pay the insurance, they don't go
Yeah,
through,
they pay everything.
not to
Yeah.
us.
I think what happens is that I did see from Esther, I believe this is a preferred pricing list for the UCO participants.
Right.
So another building not with the UCO insurance program can certainly contact a custom, but they're on a different schedule.
Right.
Because they're not in the group.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, we just need clarification, you're right,
A few buildings,
I understand what
I
you're
think
saying.
we should be clear with those buildings.
you're 100% right,
That this is what we're doing under Assured Partners.
yeah,
If you wanna be included, we need to know that,
right,
and, because
yeah, that's fine,
we're not gonna process claims for you.
no.
Who is? Who is?
Now, it is going to be
Find out who
confusing.
will.
What happens when public adjusters show up on the property?
That's not our problem.
No, but how do we alert people to like pay attention to what they're signing?
That's not up to us, that's up to the associations to figure that out.
Hmm. Should I write any kind of article about that or stay clear of that?
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yep, so they would know.
And didn't they change state statute about assignment of benefits?
That I don't know. I could look that up.
I think I did, they made a change in the law about that you cannot just, you can't just go to a contractor and he says, here, sign over all the benefits to me and I'll take care of everything.
Oh,
That
okay.
was passed 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. It's either 2 or 3 years ago, the assignment of benefits was removed because of certain people that were doing bad things.
Okay,
Like-
so that's what public adjusters. Now, and one thing Phil Massey addressed was that if the UCO insurance participants are, have a special pricing with custom, but they could go to anybody they like. They don't have to stay with custom.
Absolutely,
Yeah, we know
Yeah.
that,
you know that,
we know that.
Everybody knows that. Okay. Now we have another vendor also, Velocity, but maybe there's 10 associations that are involved with Velocity. So there might be a little confusion with that and custom to building people. How do we address that?
we don't.
No,
we
that's not-
don't.
Your own? Okay.
It's very simple. Should there be an issue, they come to the UCO office. We will be set up here. There'll be a representative, Quadrant VIPs will be here. There'll be somebody from Customs. Your insurance people will be here. We'll look up, see if that building is part of our insurance program. We turn them over to Custom and Custom will work from that point on. If they're not part of, and they have a different insurance company, they can either go to the other insurance or Custom can offer them some kind of.
Or
Deal.
if they are part of the UCO insurance, but
Yeah.
have chosen Velocity,
Right.
we have to
Yes.
exclude them from, that's another.
But that's not up to us. The associate, remember, we just agreed that the association is responsible for itself. We're not over, that's the whole issue, that's what. Removing the liability from UCO to the individual
I
association.
think somebody should go into the paper to make it perfectly clear,
Yes.
so no one has to misunderstand.
Yeah, you should write something,
Something,
yes,
just write something like, we just talked about, only people who are under the assured partners will get service. Anybody else?
Preferred service.
Preferred service.
Preferred service. And then anyone else will have to, and it's probably gonna be more money if they decide to go with Customs, but that's not really our problem, we have, but. It's a tough situation because the insurance went so high, and even though I know people are worried, I'm worried, we were nowhere near 400,000. All of the reserves, to be honest with you, and it's not that we haven't been raising people, we just paid an assessment, we've been raised $60. You can only raise people so much every year, that's the problem, and we can't get to that deductible for a long time, and we're 56 years. We have maybe 300,000 total in reserves, which is more than most buildings, so. It's a problem.
If you
It's a
have-
causing problem,
The question I have
yeah,
is if you had a major storm with major damage
Hmm.
to your building, say there was $2 million damage to your building.
right,
Now, you would be responsible for the deductible.
you know that we have to get
Let me-
along,
well,
yeah,
So
okay,
you have so much money in your deductible
right,
account, your
Right.
reserves,
right.
right,
you can use that towards that.
I
Then
know.
you would have to do an assessment for the rest of the deductible in order to get paid for the additional damage of the storm.
if
Yes.
you had $2 million worth of damage to an $8 million building, there'll be nobody living in that building would be vacant.
That's correct. It would be a category.
It wouldn't change things.
It would, no, I understand, there would be nobody to say, you gotta put a new roof on, cause I can't live there, cause the building would be empty.
Well, he's saying if it's a $2 million damage, that
Right.
means that it's way up there, category 4 or something.
Right,
And I think if we have a 4 or 5, the only thing that would be skinny in my unit is the $10,000 storm windows in the.
the wall will be gone, but the windows.
It wouldn't change anything.
No, that's the
No.
point, it doesn't matter.
But,
You
okay,
still
so,
need to come up with
but-
the money.
most of the,
I know.
most of the 3-story buildings, or the 2-story buildings have like 3 buildings.
Right,
Now,
Section.
let's, sections.
right,
So let's say that one section got totally destroyed.
Right.
right,
That would be maybe $1 million out of a $2 or $3 million total building.
right.
So that their deductible would have to be used, if they have reserve money, can they use that reserve money in the deductible?
It,
I actually,
No. Well, his question is that, I understand that. I think eventually we do have to get more funds in reserve, period, in all the funds. There's now a new thing that we saw on the Zoom, you have to put a line item for structural reserves now. So everybody's gonna have to just keep putting more money into reserves. I mean, let's hope it's not major storms, but they are coming, and they did say we're gonna have about 4 or 5 hurricanes besides the 25 storms.
But again, some of the two-story buildings
Yeah.
have
I
reserved.
got it, I got it.
No, let me finish, please.
I heard you.
Yeah,
Some of the two-story buildings may have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in reserve.
Maybe.
Other buildings may have more than that.
Mhm.
right.
So if the damage is over the deductible, can they use the reserve funds to cover the deductible so that the rest of the policy can be paid?
If they have pooled reserves, yes. If they don't have pooled reserves, no.
What's in your declaration?
Or they have to have a meeting, right,
Must
Yeah.
be amended.
That's a line by
Right.
line.
yes.
And I was also told, I believe it was by Seacrest, that if you do that, which you are allowed to do under those
Right.
circumstances, you have 1 year to repay it.
That's right.
So at some given point,
That's right.
the funds need to be collected, whether it be by assessment or however else you do it. But you've got to replenish them. Before that emergency situation, you could in fact do that.
Okay.
But it would solve the problem for the moment.
Yes.
It would just
If you
put
have,
an end
I mean, you might be able to get a loan, you might, whatever it is, but we're not here for that. That's, you know, that's administrative on part of the building.
You're taking A and putting it in B, and somewhere along the line, you gotta shove it back into A again.
Yes, you gotta.
To bring it back to rid of
But
it.
most of the reserve accounts have something like paint,
Yeah.
roof,
Right,
electricity.
those are dedicated reserves.
Those are dedicated,
Yeah.
but in the storm, they're replacing the roof, so you're using roof reserves to replace the roof.
You gotta use
Or you might have to use more than what you
All over
have,
to make it happen.
you know.
I think
Again,
there's
the
a
issue,
difference.
it's an administrative of the building,
Yeah.
not Yuko's responsibility.
And there's some semantics too, because the reserves are future maintenance costs.
Yes.
Right.
They're not emergency costs.
Right,
Whereas insurance deductibles are a result of a catastrophic loss.
Right.
Which, there's some semantics involved, it's lawyer stuff, it's got nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
It really is, it's lawyer stuff. We need to worry about, what are we gonna do if we get hit with a hurricane, at this point?
what we need is clarification from customs that they, in case of a named storm or major, they will have a representative in our Yuko office to be accepting claims from the association.
As
I'll do that this afternoon and I'll get back to you.
yeah,
I'll
Everybody,
email Esther.
Absolutely.
as many as necessary, not
Yes.
one poor soul,
well,
depending on the situation.
again,
That's it.
the last person that we had in here was Belfour. He did create some issues for us, but he was here.
Yeah.
He would come in the office and he did help out
You
when,
just never know, I
Right.
wouldn't ever limit it to one.
no, again, but that was our,
Yeah.
we had one designated individual from Belfour that was assigned to Century Village. We were his prime people, you know,
We were never hit with a category 5.
right. And if we were,
Then you'd need an army and.
right,
Exactly.
exactly. All right.
The other thing that was talked about were these associations getting a line of credit.
Yes,
But you know, that incurs costs and fees to keep that going from year to year.
I know,
It's not free.
I know that.
They have to decide, each association
Yeah,
has to
that's-
decide how they want to fund whatever funds they need.
Right,
And whichever works for them, and of course, they're dealing with people who they may not be able to get in contact with. So it's a difficult problem, but the bottom line is they have to figure out a way to get the additional money they need if it's an emergency. And how they do it is up to them.
okay. Anything
Yes.
else?
One more thing, if I may, the scary thing from an association's point of view or a board's point of view is our insurance, because of what happened initially, in Miami, didn't just give you a slight increase in your insurance. I mean, it was like double,
That's what I said.
in some cases more than that.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, you had 1 year where it was like, okay, everybody, you need to be assessed to bring that deductible up to date today. And you can do that, and that's not to say that tomorrow, on the renewal of our insurance, we're not looking at another double
It could very
or
well.
whatever. Just in the event, if there's ever a catastrophic incident.
Right.
insurance that we've been paying double and triple for
Right,
Right,
will do its thing. And it's all, and I know I've heard this from various people, it's like, does it make better sense for these associations that are paying all this money
right.
to maybe perhaps put it into their own reserve in the event? And
If you wanna self-insure, there's a procedure in order to self-insure, which I believe is governed by the state. That requires you to fund it accordingly,
according to the value of the.
according to the value of the building.
But this is the first reaction, it's like, oh my God, when does the payout of premiums stop?
It never,
And
never.
well, I should say the increase of premiums stop. And the increase of the deductibles, and it's almost like having life insurance, it's not life insurance, it's death insurance.
Right.
You don't collect it until something happens.
I was just gonna say, that's when insurance stops, when you're in the ground, then you gotta stop paying for it, somebody else pays for you. But again, we're worried about things that we have no control over, we can only control what's here. This office, what programs we offer, and what can we do in case of an emergency. This becomes the command center, we have radios, searches involved, and mostly everything comes out of this office. Other than that, David, you got something, I know you got something, no, you know what, did we say anything? Are we close to the way you're thinking? No,
I'm just interested.
right, I mean, I'm just saying, you were here the last time, right, weren't you in the office the last time? When we had
no,
that,
no,
that it was that windy storm that we had, it wasn't a storm.
no, Wilma?
No, it wasn't when we had the hurricane, it was like really bad weather that broke down some trees and we had some tree that hit our house. We drove around, I don't remember, we drove around. I know.
It was my years to say.
Yes, Michael,
So in the event, from an association perspective, in the event of a damaging storm, then the point of contact to seek help with remediation would be to come here
yes,
to the UCO office, where we'd be able to touch base with both insurance and a damage remediation company.
yes,
Then the board would make the decision whether or not they want to avail themselves of that contract at
Yes.
a group price.
this becomes the command center. We used to have drills on that, on who would man the computers, who would man the telephones. Who would have walkie-talkie radios, how many people would be allowed in the building.
That century village,
Okay.
no one had telephone.
Right.
That was fun. Okay,
If
thank you, Susan.
we will, maybe if you want, Suzanne, we can talk to Donald. And have like a mock-up in case of an emergency when you're here.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could actually pick a time and a date where we could have somebody from customs, security, certs, and all the offices here. And what we would do in case of an emergency, like a drive,
That's a good idea, to be prepared.
It's like a mock trial.
right?
Planning you with everybody's cell phone numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
who's doing what,
Right,
you know.
exactly. So,
Okay. Any more
Is there an emergency generator in UCO?
we have, yes,
We do.
Oh, okay, I
yes.
think I remember
yes.
that, yeah.
Richard, you got your hand up.
Just three observations. Many of the problems we deal with are because of the governance structure of Century Village. There's no master association. We will always have these problems.
Right,
Secondly, many associations, I believe, because of lax Tallahassee laws about reserves and insurance, they skipped it. They're paying the price for it.
right,
And thirdly, is it possible for an individual association to write in its bylaws in case of a named storm, reserve line items can be shifted to repair whatever is necessary? Someone mentioned earlier, you can get in touch with certain people. Is there any way to, if there's a name?
I don't think bylaws, that's gotta be in your bylaw, that's
Yeah,
whoever's
that's what-
managing.
You have to change your bylaw, you have to add.
Well, how you gonna do that? President of the building is in Canada, and you get a storm, and you put in that the president is in charge of building repairs, and the guy's in Canada, how do you get in touch with him?
It takes time.
Try and do it Well, all I can suggest, try and do it before there's an emergency.
I mean,
Yeah, and then-
there are things in place. If you have a secret building, they
Right.
come around and you sign a form,
Yeah.
they're a cleanup form,
Yeah.
that they'll come around and they'll do bulk cleanup for you,
Right.
okay? Now, the buildings, I don't know if Pruitt does the same thing. I know that Secret does.
But the cleanup is very expensive.
Right.
On Seacrest part.
Okay, and Secret also goes around, any major roadways that we have, the perimeter roads.
Mhm.
They will go around and clear them in case there's trees or something down. So if you have emergency vehicles, an ambulance or a fire truck has gotta come in, they'll be able to get in.
Good.
Okay, so that's in place. Again, what you're talking about is the individual running of the associations, which we're limited to what we can do because we're COAs. Okay, we can hold your hand, but we can't make you eat.
So do we have any more questions for Suzanne?
Well, yeah, just one more thing. There's number 6 on the agenda before we end. Underwriting requests for roof inspections and conditions. So Assured Partners got from American Coastal Underwriting a list of buildings that had issues with roofs, or so they thought. They do drone inspections. So most of them had been, well, I think all of them actually now have been, have responded to underwriting. So we're currently awaiting for the status of what underwriting wants these particular buildings to do next. So that's all under control. It's out of our hands. Everybody got back to us, and that matter is closed for now. And then just 2 things as I end. So Fausto, I will get back to you today after I email Esther Santa Maria about having how many representatives can she have in our UCO command center. That's number 1. Anything else for Esther? No, before we sign the contract, you sign the contract.
Just so that
We wanna make sure.
we wanna make sure that their one representative from their company will be here. Cause, we may not be able to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
They may have ways of communicating.
Okay, very good. And then,
A direct number, like
Right.
Michael said, it's an 800 number. It would be nice if we had a direct number to speak to someone.
And should Assured Partners have somebody here in those kind of conditions?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I mean, we need a designated contact person for Century Village.
Right,
We need a person that we can directly, if you have an issue with, instead of trying to call an 800 number for custom,
Right.
you need to talk to Jimmy Jones, who's our representative for Century Village. That's how it was done in the past.
right.
We had
Yeah.
one individual that was designated for Century Village.
And the other thing,
okay,
one other question along these lines, Susan, is on the pre-event. If you sign the contract or you make an agreement with them, should there be a way for individual associations to pre-arrange for them to come in the event of an emergency? I mean, what you've got now
No,
is.
how can you do that? Because you may not have any damage.
Exactly,
You have no damage. So the only way that you can do is to come here
exactly.
and say, my building has damage. A tree fell through the
That's what
roof.
you're saying. This is why it's a command center here.
This is why, I mean, this is the right place to come. This is where you come. Okay, and between the insurance, Massey and custom, they should be able to determine how soon they can get an adjuster here, who's gonna go there, who's gonna take a look at it, but they'll have all the information, what size building, where it is, if there's anybody, that's what Patricia and I did.
When
We went,
we went around, we asked, some people had severe damage, some did, the building was.
was there anybody in the building that needed help?
Right,
Were there anybody that were not mobile? Could we do anything? Did you need water? That's what we did. We knocked on doors.
Well, Search Rep does that. in the building.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the CERT rep is for, to go and do that.
but I go outside of my building, so I'm
So
certain.
we actually did the northwest quadrant. That's what we did. We knocked on every single door. We looked for the president. Was there anybody damaged? Did anybody get hurt? Did you need anything? And it took us like 3 hours, 3.5 hours to go around, but that's what we did. But this was the place where all the action was happening.
But people felt comfortable when we came around,
Yeah.
to show that someone had an interest, like you were saying, to help people and all.
Yeah.
People get nervous, before, after, and during. I can tell you, I've been here for many. First thing I do is when I hear it's a hurricane, I cook. I cook and bake, so if I'm gonna be nervous, I wanna eat.
Yeah, we wanna eat, gotta eat, gotta keep your strength up.
Yeah, cookies. And
I-
also, Michael from Golf's Edge, I will get back to you about your question about the one deductible for all the buildings, or do they each have individual deductibles? I should be able to get a response today. So I'll just email Mike in the UCO office, because I don't have your email address, and so Mike will contact you. Is that okay, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Might as well find out all these things now. And while we're doing all this preparation, and hopefully it passes us by, and that is possible, we might not get hit at all, which would be the best, but we will be prepared.
From your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, yeah.
Not this year, who knows next.
Next year,
Next year is next year,
Next
this
year,
year,
next
don't worry
year.
about this year.
who knows if I'll be here next year, who knows who'll be here.
No, no.
It's all in God's hands.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I have nothing else. Is there a motion to close the meeting?
That's I'll make the motion and thank you.
I'll second it.
There you go. Thank you for there.
Thank you, team. Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, Joanne.
You're welcome.
There we go. We're off the air.